Hello and welcome to City Focus. I'm Diane Gonzalez. More than 1 million people in the U.S. get cancer every year, but with advances in cancer research and treatment, many now survive. In fact, most of us know someone who has survived cancer. Well, today we're going to talk about life after cancer and also about the services offered by the American Cancer Society here locally. Joining me are Lisa Seipel. She is the Senior Representative for Community Engagement for the Cancer Society here in Lincoln. And Dr. Amy Geschwender is a cancer survivor and much more. Amy, we're going to start with you. You have a very compelling story. You really have had a look at cancer from several different aspects.
I have, largely unexpectedly. So I was born right here in Lincoln, grew up here, and went to college at the university. Then I moved to Colorado to go to graduate school, and I earned a PhD in cell biology. And the laboratory that I worked in Colorado to do that research was funded by the American Cancer Society. So the society kind of gave me my professional start. So I finished my degree, and if you fast forward, I ended up back in Lincoln like so many people do. Here, married and with kids, and life was going along very smoothly until I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And that was in 2007. So, as you can imagine, that really shook my world. We weren't sure what to do. There was a lot of disagreement in the field about whether this type of brain tumor, whether you should treat it right away or wait. And the local folks all said, you know, we don't want to touch it, we just wait and we watch it, and when it does something scary, then we'll act. And I was a little uncomfortable with that general strategy. So I ended up getting some out-of-state opinions, and the out-of-state neurosurgeons all said, we want to get that thing out of your head. So I went to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and I had brain surgery in 2008 to remove the tumor. It was a low-grade glioma, is what they call it. So I'm lucky it's not one of the scary, fast-moving tumors, but it's also not curable. So these tumors almost always come back. Because of the location, I had a pretty aggressive surgery, so I have a shot at maybe we really got rid of this thing. That's the hope anyway. So.
And you're doing well right now?
I am doing well, yeah.
Well, that's something definitely to celebrate. And when we talk about the Cancer Society, we hear a lot about the fundraising that goes on both to support those who are living with cancer as well as to support research. Tell us about the local fundraising events that go on here in Lincoln.
Sure, absolutely. We actually just came off of an event here this week. We had a survivor skate down the rail yard, but we have many, many events that happen year-round. There's nearly 50 Relay for Life events here in Nebraska. The largest one in the state happens right here in Lincoln at Haymarket Park, which is our Relay for Life event. And then we have numerous Relay for Life events here in Lincoln and around in the surrounding communities. We have volunteers and teams that participate in Relay for Life that put on their own fundraisers that happen just all the time. It seems like every week there's a different fundraiser going on, which is really great. We have other events. Our Making Strides Against Breast Cancer Walk happens in October. That's out at Holmes Lake, and that's a really great event. We had it this last October with over 5,000 people attending that event with over 400 breast cancer survivors. So it's a great event. We also hold our Hope Gala every year. We held that event this last November, and then this coming year it'll be in October. It's a fun event. It's a fun time to come out, get dressed up. This year we had dueling pianos. We invite cancer survivors to that as well. And part of that event, we actually raised money for our Hope Lodge. We have a campaign going on right now to build a Hope Lodge in Omaha, which will actually benefit people right here in Lincoln who travel for treatment, so they can stay at our Hope Lodge for free as long as they need. And so we have a lot of events. It seems like we're always planning new events, which are really great. And we have a lot of volunteers that help us achieve that.
We think about the Cancer Society in terms of fundraising and that kind of work, raising money for research, but they're also there to help people when they find out they have cancer, and then once they are declared a survivor.
Yes. I mean, it's a long process. So the day comes that you're told that you have cancer, and you panic. I mean, the fear is pretty intense. You don't know what to do, and you're in kind of in a foreign country. You know, you don't speak the language, and you're not sure what the customs are, and you don't know exactly what to do. How do I make these decisions about these things that I don't understand? It's a really overwhelming time. But there are a lot of resources available. The biggest thing that I learned in my experience is that you have to advocate for yourself. To make sure that all your decisions are right for you as a whole person, because you're not a disease, you're a person. So if you're struggling during that time trying to figure out what comes next, the American Cancer Society has a telephone service that will help you figure out, you know, how do I get a second opinion? What kinds of questions should I ask? You know, what other things do I need to think about when I'm making a decision for treatment? They also have a couple great programs if you have to travel for treatment. So the Hope Lodge and the guest room programs provide housing for patients who are receiving treatment away from home. So I didn't know about that when I had surgery in Minnesota. It might have been nice to know. I mean, I was freaking out about the logistics of, you know, I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I'm going to go out of town for a week and have brain surgery, and where are we going to sleep in Minnesota? So if you're struggling with that, the American Cancer Society can help to set up the logistics for you to make that happen.
You mentioned another transition period is then once you become a survivor.
It's odd, unless you've been there. Most people think that it must be so exciting and positive to finish treatment, but the kind of dirty secret is that there's a period of letdown that happens. So you've been so focused on fighting this thing and making progress, and you've got a medical team watching you and asking you how you're doing and keeping an eye on you, and it kind of suddenly stops. And that's when you realize, oh, so the rest of my life of watching and wondering if it's going to come back, that starts now. It's a tricky time. But there are resources there too to help you learn about your health now. So what health risks do I face based on the treatments that I had? You know, what do I need to look for long term? Who do I call if I have different kinds of problems, you know, going forward from treatment? So lots of resources there too. And the chance to fight back. So the motto for Relay for Life is celebrate, remember, fight back. What I found was that I felt really helpless once I finished doing my part to battle the cancer, and I didn't like the helpless feeling, and through Relay for Life, that was my chance to fight back. It made me feel more proactive, more in control of the situation at that time in my transition.
Now, the Relay for Life here in Lincoln is the largest one in the state. About how much money is raised?
Let's see. Last year we raised about $240,000, which is great. We had thousands of people come to that event. It's a great family-friendly event. There's a lot of activities going on throughout the evening. There's various ceremonies. There's a kids area for kids to play. There's vendors with food. It's a pretty amazing event, and then at the very end of the evening they have a luminaria ceremony to just honor those that have survived cancer and those that we've lost to cancer. And it's a very, very powerful and emotional ceremony, but it's a really great event.
Now, the money, a lot of it goes to the National Organization to Support Research, but a lot of it comes back here to Nebraska. Some people might be surprised at how much comes back to our state for research.
Yes, yeah, actually about 72% comes back to our state, which is great. Like a lot of the programs that Amy was just talking about, our guest room program, our Hope Lodge. We have a campaign going on right now to build a Hope Lodge in Nebraska. It will be in Omaha, and so that will actually benefit folks here in Lincoln who travel for treatment. They'll be able to stay there for free as long as they need to, if they have that need. We also have literally hundreds of volunteers that provide transportation services for patients. So it's called our Road to Recovery program. That's one of the biggest barriers to treatment is the access and getting people to their appointments. And so we have volunteers that will pick cancer patients up, take them to and from their appointments. And so we have volunteers here in Lincoln that do that and have given many, many rides to many cancer patients. Some other things that we do, we have a program called Look Good, Feel Better. It's a program primarily for women where we have trained cosmetologists who work with cancer patients, because there's so many changes to your appearance when you go through cancer treatment, that they work with them to kind of just help them go through that time. It's a great program. Trying to think some other
Well,
things.
you mentioned the research dollars too that are funding research right here in Nebraska.
Yes, yep. We actually have just over $1 million coming back to Nebraska researchers here. So that's really great to be able to have people right here in our own state working on finding that cure.
Now, and some of you tell us about your work with the Cancer Society right now. You're on a review panel.
So the American Cancer Society has what they call the stakeholder program. There are 20 individual research grant programs, 20 different topic areas that are funded by the national organization. And each of those review committees has stakeholder members who are people with that personal connection. So they're survivors or caregivers or oncologists or nurses, or they have, they're personally plugged into that cause. And those people serve together with a group of scientific experts to review all the research proposals that are submitted.
Now, you have an example for us of a project that the Cancer Society funded that no one else would, that went on to be
Yes.
really a groundbreaking effort.
Yes. What we've seen is that federal research funding is incredibly difficult to get right now. The funding rate is the lowest it's ever been, and especially young researchers who are starting out who don't have a big track record established, they just cannot get funding to build a research program. So ACS has a special focus on early career investigators, and we have an entire grant category devoted to early career investigators. So we give many smaller awards to new people who have a lot of promise and interesting ideas so that they can establish their research program and really get things going. Then we have a separate type of grant for the more established researchers as well.
Very interesting. Let's let people know how they can find out more about the Cancer Society and its activities here in Lincoln.
Sure, yes. You can visit our website. That website is cancer.org, and then there's just various links throughout our site that will link you directly to events where you can find some of the resources that we talked about in terms of our programs and services, where you can find out about healthy eating and prevention and early detection and all of those things that we can help with. And then they can also visit our Facebook page, which is the American Cancer Society Nebraska region page, and that we tend to put more of our some of the things that are going on locally, and there's also an event set up on that page for next week's Survivor Skate event. So go out and like that page to find out what we have going on here in Nebraska.
And again, the local phone number here also, 402-423-4893. That's where you can call if you'd like to figure out how to get what you need.
Exactly.
Again, let's talk about as you talk, I can see that you are such a strong advocate for what you are doing, and there is also an advocacy group that is associated
Yes.
with the American Cancer Society. Tell us how that works.
Yes, it's called the Cancer Action Network. So that is the political advocacy and lobbying arm of the American Cancer Society. And that group sets national priorities for causes that we'd like to support. Just to give you a little history of the success of that group, Nebraska passed a law, I believe 2 years ago, about oral chemotherapy medications. So the problem was that some patients' insurance plans were treating oral chemotherapy pills differently than IV chemotherapy that you would get in a doctor's office. So patients were forced to take IV treatments that had worse side effects and required them to drive long distances and spend hours hooked to a machine when they could have been taking a pill with breakfast because their insurance coverage for the pill, they just couldn't afford the massive copays. So a law was passed in Nebraska, and I believe more than 30 other states now have laws that require the oral drugs to be covered to the same degree as the IV drugs. So we just last spring, at the end of the last session, passed an additional measure. So the first law was for a limited time. There was a sundown clause. So now the sundown clause is gone, and so it's just law in Nebraska now the parity law for chemotherapy.
So it's a way to continue making a difference.
Yes.
Well, thank you both very much for joining me. I certainly learned a great deal about cancer and about the work of the American Cancer Society here in Lincoln. We want to let people know that if you'd like more information, you can go to the national website, cancer.org, and you can find out, they do have some local event pages on that. Most of the local events here in Lincoln are on the Cancer Society's Facebook page. You'll find the local page at Facebook, American Cancer Society Nebraska Region page. The website for the Cancer Action Network is asccan.org. And if you'd like to call the local chapter of the American Cancer Society, the number is 402-423-4893. Lisa and Amy, thank you again very much for joining us, and good luck with all your events this year.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for City Focus.